Fast Forward Productions. The women are speaking.
I think in our world, when you make money online, especially when you're adjacent to a community like CrossFit, there is, I think, a tendency to kind of play both sides and be a little bit like vanilla on charged topics because you don't want to rock the boat. And it's hard to put opinions out when you know that there's going to be people who disagree, who are in your space. Not only because there's an impact potentially financially, but also it's just you may have to go to bat for yourself and the people who are in your community that you do really care about.
Welcome to the show. I'm Alex Parker, as you probably know by now, here with my trusty partner in everything except for crime because we don't commit crime, Meredith Root.
I thought you said crying because I was going to say sometimes we are partners in crying because we do that.
Yeah, but usually you cry and then I cry at different times.
Usually you cry first and then you're like, why are you not crying? And I'm like, because I can't. And then I cry later.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, so for today, we're going to be talking about our recent trip to Raleigh, how our hotel room was out to get us, and probably one of the most charged topics right now, which is the US election. We're going to talk about how taking a stand can be beneficial, but also scary, and I guess our overall viewpoints without getting too charged and emotional, because there's been enough of that in the last 7 days. So please enjoy.
Alex?
Meredith?
We're back. Feels like it's been a minute.
Yeah, it has. We recorded 3 episodes in advance. So
we're rusty.
I haven't seen you behind a mic in 3 weeks. Well, you look good.
Thanks. I don't feel good.
I know.
I'm sick. Kind of. Not all the way sick, but you know that like on your way to being sick feeling?
Do you still have hope that you might not get all the way sick? Or are you just prepared for the inevitable?
I have hope.
Okay, good.
I'm trying to be smart today.
Right.
Which I know is like not what you usually do.
No, I ignore it.
You're like not a normal person. So I need to go to bed. But
what I don't appreciate is you making me feel bad when you feel bad that you can't keep up with me.
I have never said anything like that.
You say it all the time.
No.
You don't say those exact words.
Right.
But you give me that impression. And you all but say those words.
I'm like, for once, can you just be a normal human being that like doesn't just like power through everything and somehow have that work out most of the time? It irritates me. I'm sorry.
I wouldn't say that I power through. I just do.
Okay.
It's not powering through. It's just doing what I'm supposed to do, what I want to do. I just don't let things stop me. I guess I power through.
Uh-huh. It does. You do eventually crack. Like, there's a few times of year where you just crack.
Okay, no, I had counted. In the last 8 years, I've been sick 4 times.
Okay.
So it does happen, but it's rare. I'm like, if you had to imagine me driving down a road, and then you also, you're like the car that drives, and sometimes it hits a speed bump a little too fast, and then it's like, whoa, I better slow down, and be more careful for the next speed bump. I'm driving the car, and I'm like, I'm going so fast, I don't even feel the speed bumps. And then I crash into the ditch.
Yeah. But I never crash I don't go into the ditch. I'm just like, whoa, easy. All right, close one.
You go into the ditch, but you don't completely destroy the car.
I get a wheel in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't used to get sick. I started getting sick when I started visiting my Ash and Avery
I was just about to say.
Niece and nephew.
You get sick every time you visit them.
Without fail.
And yet you still convince me to sleep in their house.
Yep.
And stay with them when we go visit.
Look, like shorter amount of time. I actually thought, usually I start to feel kind of sick like towards the end of the trip. And this time I didn't. I was like, oh, I'm going to get out of this without being ill. Joke's on me.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's been a day.
So the lesson that we learned is don't visit your niece and nephew for longer than 2 days.
Yeah. I don't have the immune system for like daycare germs.
No. I wonder if you might have that walking pneumonia that was spreading through their daycare.
No, walking pneumonia doesn't tend to infect people our age.
Yeah.
It's like very young and very old, or people who are very run down.
That might qualify. You might qualify as that.
I don't think I'm very run down. I'm just a little run down.
Like, I'm having visual flashbacks to 2 weeks ago when you said at least a dozen times, I think I'm just really run down.
Burnt out.
Oh, okay. Burnt out.
Different.
That's different?
Different.
Is burnout more like a mental thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And run down is more physical?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Thanks for the clarification.
You're welcome. Rundown's more of a like, I've been over exercising and under eating kind of situation.
Okay.
That's rundown.
Okay.
Burnt out is like, I'm bored, but I still have to do things.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're back from Raleigh, North Carolina. We did our third in-person event. So we did Philly and then Calgary and then Raleigh, all 6 months apart. We're taking a break for at least 18 months because those are, while very fulfilling and great to have that in-person community, they are a lot to plan and prep for. Even despite it being a smaller group, we care a lot. It's 3 days of pretty much nonstop group action.
Well, I think it's really easy to fall into patterns of like, oh, we do this because we do this. And you don't always think about why or like what you want to get out of it. And so I think what we're kind of going to dabble in more now is thinking about what community actually means. And if we want to run events, like how do we run them in a way that it's like more, it offers more, it's sufficiently large and well put together so that there's like high value, but they're not happening so frequently where like we can't show up and they don't always look one way just because they've only ever been that one way. Like the running events are really convenient. And that was kind of born from the Run Club. So it made sense, I think. But now we have like people that are interested in cycling and we have grown our network outside of our company. And so there's potentially different avenues, but we can't do it all. It's not back to the drawing board at all. It's sort of like, okay, how do we grow from here to a direction that feels right?
Yeah.
And polished and like all of the things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that will be fun to keep up with.
We are doing RPI, which won't be like a organized, us hosted event, but that'll be a community event. So there's like, that's a perfect example of how do we get our community together in different ways. Like we don't have to organize that event. It's organized. We just show up. So yeah, sort of dabbling in different formats.
Yeah, I mean, event planning isn't our strength.
No.
We do a fine job. We've done a fine job, but it's not our strength. I mean, I don't like calling people.
Calling people?
I don't like having to call for things.
Oh, yeah.
And when you're organizing an event, that's what that requires.
Yeah, and now, like, I didn't realize how hard it is to get people to call you back these days. And, like, that's the world that we live in. It's like, it's very hard to get anyone to, like, commit to anything. I felt really stressed out getting things in order for Raleigh, like finding a dinner venue, getting like, bagels or biscuits organized for Saturday, having a plan for Friday. It just felt like it was really difficult to get some things in order. And it's like, I think everyone's just so busy. Like that's just the world right now.
Yeah.
But I mean, it did come together and it was great. It was our best weather event so far. Yeah, it was actually a really, really wonderful weekend. And I liked that it was a little bit smaller of a group.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah.
I ran the half well.
You did. Yeah.
It was funny. I was thankful to not be doing the marathon because the half is just a little bit less, I don't know, pressure filled. It's easier, I think. It's hard in a way because you have to run faster, or people typically do, but it's easier that you're not like, the carb load isn't quite as important. You don't have to plan as much for nutrition. It's half the distance. So I just kind of went in like planning to run hard, but like at my marathon pace, which if you run your marathon pace for half a marathon, it's not as bad. And then I felt really good. So I just went for it. I ended up PRing.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
Hey, you ran well too.
Yeah, thank you.
It was actually most people, especially the ones that I coached in Run Club who were there, got PRs.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
The problem is for me, I don't know. I ran the 10K. I don't even know what my PR is for a 10K. I would say around 45 minutes, probably. I have no idea. I don't remember what I've run a 10K in. And I think because of you and like my merger with you, my brain is calibrated to like 40 minutes.
I know. My brain is calibrated to me too.
Well,
but it's also,
your
it's like
brain.
calibrated to also people that I work with. It's calibrated to a lot of things, but for some reason, your run, maybe because we've just been so similar for so long with like performance metrics. When you said 47, I was like, oh, well, she ran it easy. Like, you know, because I'm like, oh, 47 minutes for me is not running that hard.
Yeah, I mean, imagine how I felt. It was a total, I mean, I was like, who is this? Who is this slow person?
But then 47 minutes is actually quite good.
Yeah, it's pretty decent.
Like when you won for the Fernie 10K, I was like, wait, okay, so no one else entered? It was just Meredith?
Yeah, thank you. Because it was around, I ran like a even slower in Fernie. But yeah, I mean, that's still like a 4:33 per
I know, it's still
pace.
really
like
fast. And I don't want to put anyone down out there who runs slower than that.
No.
Because that's not the impression. It's just, it's a weird thing that I have with Meredith.
And
she has
have
with
it
me.
With you. Yeah. I also, in there was a porta potty. So
yeah.
Asterisk.
Like, I mean, I used to be able to squat 265. I'm not bragging. I'm just the fact. I can probably squat 225 now. But Meredith squatting like I don't know. When was the last time you did a 1 rep max? You probably squatting like 280.
I was supposed to do a 1 rep max last spring when I think coming out of the winter when my squat was the highest. I think that would be like 290.
Okay. So if you're squatting 290, in my brain, I'm like 225 is really bad, but it's not if you actually compare it to the general population.
Yeah.
But because it's the comparison, we're working on it.
It's just weird. It's not even comparison. It's like, it's just sort of like a calibration for performance.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a thing. We're working on it. It's hard, but I did have a good run. Thank you. I haven't been running a ton really at all. So I'm happy that I can still go out there and do that.
You also did one of our tactic fitness workouts 2 days before that had thrusters and pull-ups in it that made you so sore.
Yeah. Because I really went for it on that workout. It was a lot of thrusters and the intensity really does it. So my legs were very sore going into the run.
Yeah.
You know, like, sometimes you're sore and you get running and then it's fine. You're like, oh, I'm no longer sore. That was not the experience.
Yeah, especially with all the hills and the downhill. Okay, so we have some funny stories from Raleigh. Completely unrelated to our business.
Yeah. Well, I guess, no, yeah, totally. This is like we're going to personal land. But one of the coolest things about being in a relationship, I think, is that there are some things that happen. And like we've talked about this, you have little moments that you realize you can never actually share with anyone else, either because they're wholly inappropriate to share with someone else, or they're just like, they're not. Are you thinking of one?
I am.
Are we thinking of the same one? You'll never know.
There was one that we were actually hysterical. And we said to ourselves, like, we can maybe one day we'll tell it.
Yeah.
Maybe one day when we have one of those things set up for our podcast where we have private episodes.
Oh, like
that people pay for.
Yeah.
Then that's when we'll tell that story.
Okay.
So you guys wait. And that's your incentive to pay for the subscription.
When it comes out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So either they're stories that are super inappropriate or they're so small and intimate and like in a moment that you just.
If you tried to tell it, the other person would think you're an idiot.
Yeah. But then there are moments that are hilarious and you can tell, but it's also just like ridiculous that you get to see this side of a person or see weird shit that happens with them up close and personal.
Mm-hmm.
Like you get to hear a story and be like, that's insane. But then you're actually in the story when it's happening.
Yeah.
So I would say this is one of those, if it's what I think you're about to tell.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, I'm sound asleep. This was the second night, so I actually slept. We're going to go back and talk about the first night quickly because I want people to know. But the second night, I'm sound asleep. I think I'm on my back. I can't remember. Meredith was sleeping on her front.
As I do.
And I wake up. It was like you did something in the bed to startle me. And then I saw the movement. So up, like out of the corner of my eye, like I think you were kind of in my view because I opened my eyes because that's the first thing you do. The bed moved. I opened my eyes and then I see Meredith go from sleeping prone to like on all fours to on just her knees. It was like you were breakdancing. Like it was Actually, from what I can remember, it was amazing. It was very fluid. And while she did that, while she went from prone to kneeling, she had at the same time brought her pillow with her. So she's in a kneeling position.
I would call it like an attack position.
It's kneeling, but also attacked. And you're holding the pillow up, ready to fight.
Yeah, with the pillow.
And so then you're basically a statue. And I'm like freaked out. Like, oh my God, like kind of worried. I mean, anyone who wakes up and there's somebody else in the bed in a position where you might like smother the other person, that's going to strike fear. So I say, Meredith, and you, I think at that moment snapped out of it, like slash woke up. And instead of being like, whoa, like, no, you did this thing where you go, yeah?
It's like, yeah, what's up?
Well, you didn't say what's up. You were just like, yeah?
Yeah.
Did you need something? That's how it was. The yeah sounded.
Yeah.
And I was like, are you okay? And you just like, nothing had happened. You were like, yeah, I just had a dream. And then like turned back away from me and went to sleep. And I was like, okay, but I'm still worried. Okay. Because I'm like, maybe she was trying to do it while I was sleeping, but I woke up and so the plan was aborted. Like, I don't know. So I go to the bathroom and I come back and I'm thinking to myself, there's no way I'm going to fall back asleep unless I know what this quote dream was about. And so I said, Meredith, what was the dream about? And you said, just so casually, you were like, oh, there was a snake in the bed. And that was it. And that was the end of the conversation.
Yeah.
And then we went back to sleep. And this was middle of the night, probably like 2 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
So in the morning, you get up as usual and I'm still in bed. And I'm like, before we get going on the day, can we just quickly talk about what happened last night? So that happened.
Yeah. It was one of those dreams. It's so vivid. You're like, there's no way this isn't real. It wasn't. Like, I even remember the snake. That's how vivid it was. It's like, you never actually remember dreams after the dream. It was like a red and black, obviously very poisonous snake.
It had to have been.
And it was coming at us.
I wish I didn't wake you up. I would have liked to know if the pillow was enough to...
Yeah, I'm like, obviously, like, and then I was like, what happens if, like, there actually is a snake and you're like, I know, I'll smother it with this pillow. Like, it's just...
I think you'd have to get the pillow on top and then get a knee on top of the pillow.
Yes. But...
to pin it down.
You don't even know where it is at that point.
I know,
because you've blinded yourself.
You'd have to get lucky.
In actuality, what I would do is I would rip all of the blankets off. I would want full visibility on that snake. Eyes on the snake at all times.
Yeah, okay.
Like you put a pillow on it, now you have no eyes on it.
Yeah, that's true.
You're just going to tick it off. And then it's like definitely going to bite you.
I remember you told me this one story about, I wasn't with you at the time, but you were living alone in an apartment after you got a divorce. This was before we met.
I'm glad you see how this definitely... Like, I have a tendency.
I'm just glad it doesn't happen often. Because otherwise I'd have to sleep in a different bedroom.
100%. Yeah. I was in this apartment building complex. It's like, higher end, but definitely a younger crowd. See, what happened was I had been out or whatever, come home, gone to sleep. And I think someone must have come back to their apartment, like kind of like inebriated. And so I think they were trying to open my door when really they were just at the wrong apartment. And I heard that noise. And at the time I was either in a studio or a one bedroom. I can't remember. But anyways, it scared me. Like, and I thought someone was breaking in, obviously, but I woke up on my feet. I got out of the bed and I was on my feet. And that's when I woke up. So I woke up standing. Yeah.
I feel like that's a good thing that you have for survival.
It does seem advantageous.
Yeah. Because if you're waking up in the bed, like I did, for instance, just lying down on my back under the covers with my eyes open, not ready to protect myself at all, not good for survival.
No, but I think I make up for that.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Thankfully, I have you in the bed.
Ready to attack at a moment's notice.
Can you imagine if, like, in your dream, the snake, like, made its way towards my side of the bed and then you did try to snuff it with the pillow, but in trying to stuff the snake, you stuffed me? That would be traumatic.
Because how do you
waking up with your partner trying to kill you?
But really, they're trying to kill the snake? They're trying to save you? It's complicated. That would be a hard one to walk back.
It really would.
Because we've had a few arguments lately, and you're like, was there a snake? Or?
I think it would really depend on the state of the relationship before bed.
Yeah. I mean, that pillow would not be the right. I had like one of the hotel pillows, the big ones.
Yeah, your pillow is pretty flimsy.
Yeah, that wouldn't be the right choice.
Anyway, we had so many adventures in that hotel room because there was the adventure of the humming the first night.
Oh, God. This is when I know I'm not going to sleep well.
Okay, we go to bed, turn the lights out, everything shuts down, and I put my head on the pillow, and all I hear is a hum.
But like,
It's like it was a vibration. I felt it through my whole body.
and you said,
I felt it in my heart. I was
What?
like, this is going to cause a heart murmur.
no,
It's going to change my heartbeat
no.
because of the continuous vibration that my body is undergoing right now.
You're really underselling your heart health here.
Okay, so there's like a low vibration, and it's worse when my head's on the pillow. It's also worse when I have earplugs in. Okay, so right away I say to you, do you hear that?
And I said, shut up. No, I don't.
You did say that. And so I did. I went to bed and I had to work so hard to self-soothe and cope with the fact that you weren't going to allow us to like deal with this noise until the next day, if even then. So I go through all these mental gymnastics. I was really proud of myself. I ended up falling asleep. I had to practice a lot of radical acceptance that this humming was going to be there. There was nothing I could do to stop it. I could sleep through it. I was telling myself, like, you've slept on planes where there's much louder humming. You've fallen asleep without your earplugs with Meredith typing. You can do this. So the next morning, I say, like, there was that hum. I need to deal with this today before tonight. And you didn't really believe that there was a hum.
I couldn't hear it.
So we go downstairs into the lobby to leave for the day. And my dad's there. My parents were in Raleigh too, visiting and cheering and supporting. And I come down and my dad, he was like, well, how'd you sleep? And I was like, not really that great. There was a hum. And he was like, I heard the hum too. And then I talked to my mom and my mom heard the hum. And she said it was worse with the earplugs in. So all three of us knew there was a hum. So we called down to try to get our rooms moved. And you used the excuse that we were too close to the road. So you wanted to get moved up to a higher level. They couldn't move us. And so you then said, okay, well, we don't need to be moved to a higher level, but there is a low hum in the room. And they were like, okay, we'll send up maintenance to check it out. And immediately I'm thinking, they're going to think I'm crazy. But then maintenance comes up and we open the door, you open the door and you say, no need, it's fine. It's probably just the air, whatever.
Because, I put my ear on this like metal vent in the wall. That's like an air intake. And you can hear the air handler just kind of running. So I was like, I think it's just the air handler in the building.
And it was in the fridge. I always look and to unplug the fridge if it's potentially that. For all of you out there saying it was probably just the fridge, it wasn't the fridge.
I don't think there's all of you that many
There
people
are
out
people
there.
out there thinking she was hearing the fridge. I guarantee you.
Okay.
And so the guy comes in and says, I can turn off. It's the dehumidifier, which I didn't even know what that was. I thought there was only a humidifier.
No, in the South, there's also a because it's very humid.
Right. So he shuts it off and there you go. The hum's gone. So then we got our parents' dehumidifier shut off too. But it didn't stop there. The hum stopped, but that hotel room was out to get us because that night I was organizing my backpack to pack up for the shakeout run the next day. And I have never, ever hit my head this hard on the pointy part of a desk. It was where all the corners met to a point.
Yeah, I think they just call that a corner.
Right in the forehead.
Yep. And that hurts. I just did that today.
I thought I was going to have a permanent corner in my head.
Like a dent?
A dent.
Yeah. No, but it goes the other way though.
I know.
It's like,
that's what you mentioned. So you come up and I'm like, I do that thing where I'm like, ow.
yeah.
And then it was so painful that I just thought the only way I can make this better is by rubbing it as hard as I can.
But you were also still bent over. And at some point I was like, you're going to want to get your head above your heart here.
Well,
otherwise,
no, you were like, well, what happened? And I'm like, she should know.
How should I know?
I just wanted you to know.
I wasn't even looking.
And so instead of you like coming over and being like, oh my God, are you okay? You come over and you're like, oh my God, are you okay? Like your tone was so not compassionate.
I didn't know. I went for, I need you to know that I'm alarmed and that I care. And that's the tone I came up with.
Okay. Anyway, I started kind of laughing because I could tell you were kind of performing a little.
I was performing concern.
You were performing. So I kind of laughed. And then I take my hand off and you just look and you laugh and you say, oh, yeah, you're going to have a horn.
It was so red, like right away.
It was really red.
Yeah.
Anyway, I survived that.
Thank goodness.
And was able to PR my half marathon.
Thank goodness.
But
of course you did.
That was a lot.
Yep. The hotel, I swear, I think you have conditioned yourself to be a very sensitive sleeper.
I've always been that way. If I did, it happened when I was like 5.
But you also control everything so that you reinforce it.
Mm-hmm.
Where I'm like, maybe you shouldn't sleep with earplugs. You ever think about that?
I wouldn't be able to sleep.
You would eventually be able to sleep.
I know, but at what cost?
You would not be such a sensitive sleeper.
You wear earplugs too.
Because, Alex, I have also become a sensitive sleeper, but not because I'm a sensitive sleeper. I am sensitive to anything that might keep you awake.
So you put earplugs in for that reason?
Yeah.
How does that make sense?
So I don't hear shit that I worry about keeping you awake.
Okay, gotcha.
Like when you said there's a low hum, like then the whole night I was just aware of every sound. And so I didn't sleep.
Yeah, we didn't have a good sleep that night. Okay, let's move on.
Okay.
To a more loaded topic.
Like a loaded baked potato?
No.
Loaded tots?
No. I'm talking about the election.
What election? Well, there was an election?
There was. If you didn't know, there was an election for the president of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And
our team didn't win.
Our team did not win. And when I say our team, I mean our team in many different respects. I mean our queer LGBTQ plus team, but also our blue team. Blue happens to be my favorite color, not because of politics, but also pertains to politics. So, yeah. So it's been 2 weeks now.
1 week.
1 week. Right. Jeez. It's been 1 week.
But it's been a whole lifetime.
It has been.
Yeah.
Let's start off by saying this. We have, for as long as I remember owning this company and also just being me as a human, put our stake in the ground on topics and issues and where we stand. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would say that's like kind of a cornerstone that we've built our brand on.
I think that there is a desire in, I don't know if it's now or it's always been, for people to be okay with everyone and everyone's points of views. And they want everyone to like them and accept them. And so people don't put their stake in the ground on issues. And you see this a lot on social media specifically, where you have, whether it's wellness influencers or accounts or artists or something, you see a lot of either radio silence or appealing to the general. We're not that. And there are moments sometimes when we put our stake in the ground that it's nerve-wracking because it isn't everyone's flavor.
Mm-hmm.
And this happened again, most recently when Trump was elected and won the election. We said, this isn't what we agree with. You said it personally on who you voted for.
Yeah, and I guess maybe it's worth a lot of, well, I wouldn't say a lot of people, but maybe not everyone realizes that I'm not Canadian. Because there's a few, like, I thought you lived in Canada. Like, well, I do live in Canada. And there's like general confusion. But I'm American, so I vote in U.S. elections because that is my right, regardless of where I live. And, you know, I have to file taxes in both places. So I'm absolutely going to vote in presidential elections.
Yeah. So you posted when you voted, which was early voting on the Thursday before.
Yep.
That you had voted for Kamala Harris for various reasons. And I think you got more comments on that post than you ever have on any post personally before.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. I mean, I said, these are the things that I care about. That's why I voted for Harris. It wasn't a particularly charged post. It wasn't like, if you vote for Donald Trump, you're a piece of shit. It wasn't that. It was just, I hope that everyone exercises their right to vote if you have one, because it's really important. And this is who I voted for and why.
But I'm also like, Kate, if you're on her account and you follow Meredith, how is this a surprise to you? And people were surprised. And
well, yeah, some people for sure.
Some people were, but it's like, okay, well, what did you expect?
Right.
Okay, so going back, so we put our stake in the ground on things, and it's nerve-wracking at first because no one likes to, I guess, it's not necessarily like isolate themselves.
I think in our world, especially when you make money online, especially when you're adjacent to a community like CrossFit, there is, I think, a tendency to kind of play both sides and be a little bit like vanilla on charged topics because you don't want to rock the boat. And it's hard to put opinions out when you know that there's going to be people who disagree, who are in your space. Not only because it's, there's an impact potentially financially, but also it's just, you may have to go to bat for yourself and the people who are in your community that you do really care about. And so I think that is probably what you're getting at.
Yeah.
Maybe.
At the same time, and I really felt this time, and even though there are still people on both sides in our community, and that's okay, I did feel that because of where we stood on issues in the past and who we are as people and what we stand for, generally just being us, particularly gay and women, I would argue in this case, it was nice to be able to say, like, this is our stance and it not be as big of a blow up and just kind of feel safe in our, I wouldn't even say it's a pretty big bubble. It's not really a bubble, but feel safe in our community, feel aligned. And I think that's due to all of the work that we've done in the past to say, this is what we stand for. These are our values. You're welcome here, knowing that. So, we're not going to get a bunch of people on here who are, I guess to say it, like a bunch of people who are very hardcore Trump supporters or people who don't believe in LGBTQ plus rights and women's rights to their own bodies and that sort of thing, because we've posted about this before.
Right.
We've talked about this on our podcast. So I think there's so much value in saying and taking a stance and putting yourself out there. I mean, we saw the value. It's scary, it's hard, but I was pretty proud of us in that moment. I mean, among all of the other emotions that we experienced, there was that part of me that said, I'm really happy that, I can go into my community for work and feel like it is aligned with me and my views.
I mean, there was a lot certainly going on last week and a lot going on in social media, but it was quiet in some spaces, like specifically like coaching companies and companies that people work with was quiet. And I didn't do this for a specific reason. It just was, we were going to do it. But, we, through our company page, like put out some posts. It seemed to really like resonate with people. Most people. And then, of course, like there's the handful of, I think, people who follow us, they came to us through, the algorithm or whatever that didn't know necessarily what we were about, that were kind of ticked, but it's a good way to weed people out. And, on occasion, like there was that one post where I said I essentially would be, taking down offensive or provocative comments. And I did do that. A few people were like, well, so much for inclusivity or whatever. And it's like, well, don't mistake our inclusivity as universal tolerance because they're not the same. Mm-hmm. And I think that, we do have a very inclusive community, but we're not tolerant. We're not for everyone. And we're definitely not passive people. And I think that was a good thing to maybe remind the community of. Mm-hmm. And certainly, people who aggressively believe otherwise. And if that means you want to see yourself out of off of our page, then see yourself off of our page because you're not welcome.
I mean, there were people who were like, this is a wellness page. What are you posting politics for? It's like, okay, well, we've talked about this before. Even if you just want to talk about nutrition, a lot of my clients, their nutrition was impacted by the election because that was a very emotional experience for them this last week, even leading up to it. So yeah, it is important to touch base with people on everything.
Yeah.
As a wellness company, it's not out of the realm of what we're about.
Yeah. I mean, that's like on a personal, like a human level. Like if you pull back even more, I mean, food access has been political always. Like if people, I almost want to congratulate people on their privilege if they've never had to think about how connected these things actually are, because they are. And then mental health is wellness. For the queer community, which is a community we care a lot about, this is wellness. This is it. You don't just get to put your food or your fitness on an island. Like those things can certainly be grounding, and we hope that they are. But at the end of the day, there's so much that contributes to health and wellness and community and place. And right now there's a lot of people who live in a country and who love a country that like doesn't love them. Or there's a lot of people that out there that are behaving like they don't love them. I mean, we could talk ad nauseum about the issues with, the Trump ticket campaigned and at what human cost, which I think is significant. But fundamentally, yeah, it's politics in the US will for a long time probably be very much connected to wellness.
Yep.
It's unfortunate.
Even access to healthcare. I mean, that's just the most obvious.
On every level. Yeah.
Yeah.
On every level.
Yeah. Anyway, that was, I guess, I don't want to judge anyone for not putting a stake in the ground because it doesn't impact me. That's what we do. And I'm happy for it. And I'm proud of it because it is a hard thing. But I think what that did was it provided a place for people to say like, hey, thanks for being a voice. And I think that when, things don't necessarily go your way, well, with the election, it's going to take people being loud and demanding and saying where they stand to protect what we can. And that's kind of a roundabout way of saying that like this isn't a good time to just like stand by, even if you don't agree.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard because it's, you don't want to get campy, but at the same time, we're kind of in a position where I think there's a lot of value in kind of taking care of your own and communities upholding one another and safe spaces, really making sure that they're safe for certain people. And that's what we're about. Is it good for business? Probably not. Do I care about that? No. At some point, I mean, I don't know if this will ever, I hope it never changes, but I mean, as far as like my moral compass goes, like I need to make the decisions that help me like sleep at night. And like I need to feel that I'm, looking out for people that I care about. And if that comes at a financial cost or it comes at a growth cost, like that's fine. That's fine with me. Like I'm just never going to be the person who takes dollars over human beings.
Yeah. And that's not to say that we would never work or be accepting of somebody who has differing beliefs, whether it's, I guess, on the big ticket items like religion or politics or science. It's like I work with people. I remember in COVID, I worked with people who didn't believe in the vaccine and who had conspiracy theories and stuff like that. So, they knew where I stood. I had either a general idea or I was informed of the idea of what their stance was. And that just became something like, okay, that is not something that we discuss. Like, we know that we disagree. This isn't, a place where we're discussing that. It can be a place where we discuss your lifestyle and your nutrition and your habits and not the vaccine or, how your interpersonal relationships are impacted. Any of that, just kind of without saying it, an off-base topic. So I think there were a lot of people who I had conversations with who asked me, and of course, I don't deal with this quite to the same degree because I don't live in the US, even though there are various opinions in Canada, but there are people who would say, one of my friends or this person who I really enjoy spending time with, it came out that they voted for Trump for these reasons and that she believes this. And I'm really grappling with that because it's very different than what I believe and it goes against a lot of my values. And so really it's a personal decision on whether you want to take that person for what they provide to you, which might be a relationship outside of that. And that's your decision. And I think sometimes we make that decision with our clients. We're not like drawing a line in the sand and saying like, absolutely do not cross this. But there's no harm in saying, this is where we stand on this topic. And you have to know that before you come in. Or you don't have to, but it's like, it's there for you to know.
Yeah. The thing that I think is really challenging about the political landscape that we're in right now is it's become so much about social issues, which in many cases are human rights issues.
Mm-hmm.
When that's not what we should be talking about. They shouldn't be on the ticket. There was a time when like policies mattered more. I mean, there's always been in the US, it's always been guns, gays, and God. And that's been what drives politics. It's just been getting more extreme. But it's like by the numbers, like we're in a better place than we were in 2020. Like the last 4 years have been positive economically. But like there's essentially like 2 billionaires that have convinced people, the middle class, that they're worse off. And that's because of like immigrants and trans people. You know what I mean? Like it's also distracting And it's distracting for a reason, but it forces people into these conversations and into having informing opinions based on incomplete information, or in many cases, especially if it's coming from the right, information that's just completely fabricated or wrong. And so then you're having these debates and these arguments, like, trans participation in sports, that are just wholly distracting. And it's like not even an issue. Like, we talked about this, I don't know, however many months ago, about how like that's not really an issue that anyone needs to be really worrying about. There's not like a army of trans athletes that are looking to infiltrate women's sports. Like, that's not going on. But like, that's what many people are convinced is going on. And so that's driving votes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm a little confused on, so why wouldn't social rights or human rights be on the ticket? Like, why can't that be? Because there are pretty differing views.
There
on this,
are. And this
that's
is like
the problem.
The problem is because these issues have been allowed to like become issues, then you have like sort of extremists, like the white nationalists, sort of evangelical types that do kind of weasel their way in, and they actually do hold really extreme beliefs, and they're not the only ones. And so then they start like pushing through legislation that's really harmful and problematic for women, for the queer community, for the trans community. Like, that stuff's actually happening. And so now it is becoming a real issue.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to if people just cared about other people. Or to say it another way, didn't care about other people living their own lives, doing whatever they wanted, and just let people have their rights and move on with the stuff that's actually going to impact you.
Yeah.
Which isn't a trans kid.
Yeah. It's that whole thing of like, they're telling you what to care about and be mad about. People are caring about it and they're getting mad about it. And it's all tied to this party and this set of politics that from like the beginning has not benefited the middle class. Like, the Republican Party's been the party of Wall Street forever.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to run on these hateful policies, these fear-based policies, because they have to distract from the fact that their actual policies tend to disproportionately impact the middle class in a negative way. Look at the tariffs. Like, people don't understand that. They don't understand what the actual impact of Trump saying, like, don't worry, I'm just going to impose tariffs.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. You could argue that those two don't go hand in hand. Like, social issues and fiscal issues.
Yeah.
If you're voting for a social stance, you're going to vote against potentially where you stand fiscally.
Yeah.
For some people. But for me, like, if you're torn, I'm always going to vote, and maybe not always, but right now I'm voting for the social issues. Those matter more because they're literally stripping away rights for people, including potentially me. This isn't not happening in Canada, not to the same degree, but what's really scary as a person who lives in Canada is like Trumpism is everywhere. He perpetuates hate, and that seeps into our culture, into North America, and other places in the world. And you see this in Canada. And
Canada's is the perfect example of the whole problem with Trump. Because people will say, well, he says crazy shit, but his policies are actually moderate. And like, if you look at what Trump's policies actually are, like, quote unquote, it's maybe like, his first term, definitely, he's actually he's fairly moderate. Like, he's kind of a progressive guy. The problem is the rhetoric.
It is. And it's things that have come out of his mouth, that came out of his mouth during COVID. It's just the blatant lies. I don't even know how to describe what comes out of his mouth. It's gibberish.
There's so many dog whistles, and there's so much racism, and there's so much misogyny. Like, look at...
And there's just so much untruth.
Yeah,
and bullshit. Like, I'm sorry, there's not a word to describe what comes out of his mouth. Gibberish doesn't even do it justice.
No.
I remember on a meeting with some people, we were discussing a book by Adam Grant, and it was basically, the gist of it was like, how to come to a better understanding and how to utilize different viewpoints for the better. And then, of course, we got onto Trump. And there's a limit for me with that. It's like, it's really hard for me to talk about Trump and try to understand someone's viewpoint when like I look at him and I look at some of the things that have come out of his mouth and I look at what I believe he's perpetuated in society. And I'm like, that's a hard stop for me. That's a hard stop.
Yeah. There are things that I think disqualify him as a leader and as frankly, a presidential candidate. And that's not even including like his convictions. You know, you can actually set those aside.
Yeah, actually. I haven't even thought of those this podcast.
I know. There are things that just they take him completely off the table as an option for me. And so it's hard when that's my belief, and I believe that is a 100% correct belief. It's hard for me to entertain another opinion on that. Like, it just is. I think that where do we go from here? I think that there's a lot to be learned from stepping back and realizing, okay, there's like the extreme fringe of his supporters that believe the crazy shit, and like, you know, that makes them giddy and excited. And then there's the far right fiscal conservatives that are going to vote conservative no matter what. And then there's the middle ground. And the middle ground's like, there's actual fear or something going on there. So I think there's a lot to be learned. Like, why did certain people vote for him in this ticket when, you know, on a level, they also believe that there are things about him that are not great? Like, what is that? Because that's where I think we can connect as human beings. Like, I think that you can come together on those fears. I think that there's some amount of like leveling that can happen. But like right now, it's hard for me to want to get there with people. I'm not prepared to like go through that exercise. Like, I don't want to get on the phone and have that conversation. I don't want to talk to people online and come to the same understanding. I think maybe one day, like, that would be a good thing for people to do and for us to understand. And certainly historians, like, there's a lot to be learned about why people voted for this administration. It's just like, I don't want to do it right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's just still so much confusion that maybe will be resolved later, but it's also, for me, difficult because it's a little too late. It's like somebody I know on Instagram, and this isn't the first person who I've seen. It was like, you know, I've gotten a lot of people who have unfollowed me because I voted conservative, and I just want to have a conversation. Like, for me, it's hard because the damage is done. Like, now we're all just bracing for impact. That's what it feels like. I don't understand how understanding why someone voted for Trump right now is going to help me. I guess it maybe would reduce the confusion, but it would increase the anger.
Yeah, and that's probably why I'm not quite ready yet. I don't know. It's scary, and there's been things coming out about his cabinet who he's nominating for certain positions that are scary. Like, I have two people that I work with that are like pretty high up in the military, and they're both scared.
I mean, I have a client who is trans in the military, and that's not going to be good for anybody, including her. Like, it's extremely upsetting for just that outcome before even anything actually happens, knowing that her life and all of these trans people in the military, their life being completely turned upside down because they're going to get fired from their job.
Yeah. I mean, one of the people...
For serving in the military.
Yeah.
For serving their country.
I mean...
Because they changed genders?
Yeah. The person, I mean, again, like, we could get into this, but the guy who just was nominated for Secretary of Defense, number one, has never held a rank higher than, like, he's outranked by two of the women that I work with. And he himself believes that women don't belong in the military. So one was like, I just don't know what this means for me. And it's like, I was feeling better and now I'm feeling worse. And it just, anyways, it's hugely problematic.
I think it was that, I can't remember his name. He's a figure skater.
Adam.
What's his last name?
Is it Rippin?
Rippin? Yeah. He posted a whole series, and he posted something that like resonated with me, and I wrote it down because it kind of like really described how I was feeling. And it was, I'm most disappointed that more than half the country is okay with what I find indefensible and wrong. Yeah, and that's kind of what it boils down to, at least from like a very social like issue standpoint, which I think for me is the most important and the most like prominent thing to believe in right now as a human.
I keep reminding myself, like, when I hear things like that, I don't know, this just makes me feel better, that it's not half the country, it's half the people who voted.
Okay, but Meredith,
I know.
If you didn't vote, that's also a problem in my mind.
Yeah, but like, there's also access issues and...
But for people who, that's not.
Yes.
Anyway, I don't think we need to get into that whole issue, but
it just makes me feel better to be like, maybe it's not half the country. Maybe it's way less. Maybe there's just certain people who can't vote because of whatever reason.
Yeah.
I think we're about to live through a real fuck around and find out period of time.
Yeah.
I hope that we get to vote again.
As Brandy said the other day in her live stream, I think that a lot of people are going to wish that they didn't make that decision.
I would agree with
And
that.
it's unfortunate because it's not going to feel good to say, I told you so. It usually never does actually feel as good as we think it's going to, unfortunately. And it's going to have far-reaching impacts for the people who didn't vote for Trump. And it's scary. And I feel really bad for a lot of my clients who have young girls. And I mean, yeah, it's really awful.
Yeah.
And so that's where we stand.
If you didn't already know that, that is where we stand.
Yeah.
But maybe I have hope that it will be like the first Trump administration where like it was just such a shit show that nothing really happened. I mean, beyond the Supreme Court thing, which is hugely impactful.
I saw a red hat not that long ago that said, it was red, it said, make Canada great again.
Oh yeah, I've seen
Fernie.
a few of those. We saw one. Yeah, I've seen one in Fernie.
Yeah.
It was the one guy that rides around with this the flags hanging out of his car.
Yeah.
I'm going to get a red hat. It's just going to say, Canada is already great.
If I ever see anyone wearing a red hat, I'm going to just...
It's becoming
I wish I had the balls to do something, but...
Yeah. Just flip it off their head.
Yeah.
I saw a woman in the airport
would be
the
dangerous.
other day.
Don't do that in the US.
No, I saw a woman in the Chicago airport the other day wearing this is after the election, just wearing a hat that said Trump.
It's really hard for me not to go to this exact thing in my head. Whenever I see someone wearing a red hat, specifically one that says something like that, it's hard. No, it's not even, I don't even try not to because it's such a strong feeling. Immediately my brain goes, you hate me for who I am, for being gay. That's the connection that my brain makes. Like if you're on that side, I have to put you in that box. And I know that may not be fair, but that's where I'm at, which is really bad. And hopefully that changes over time, but I don't know.
I mean,
and again, it's like a lot of it, it's just like COVID. It's like that vocal minority, but the vocal minority is really loud.
And it's coming up here. I mean, look at how Alberta is going that way.
Yeah.
We'll see. We will see.
I think that there's a reason why when I run around in North Carolina and I see Trump signs, I don't feel safe.
Yeah. People are emboldened in their hate of minorities.
And I'm like not even that much of a minority.
No, you're visibly a white woman.
Yeah. I mean, to some.
You're visibly sometimes also a white man.
Yeah, actually,
which is honestly like the safest demographic. You should play that up.
Yeah,
really.
I should. I really should.
Do yourself a favor with that one.
Yeah. I mean, I did get my hair cut too short right before that trip, so timed right. Anything else to add?
No. I will say that his last administration, I really allowed myself to get very consumed. And part of that, I think, was at the end was COVID. But it's easy. He's a very easy person to get consumed with because he's so ridiculous.
And there's so much exposure.
Because he's just constantly puts himself on the television. My goal for the next 4 years is to not allow that to happen again. It's to focus on the things that are important, stay informed, but stay off of CNN. Don't go there. I don't know how many years I have left on this earth, but I do know that 4 years is too many to devote anything more than the absolute bare minimum energy into that human being.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be advice that I would give anyone who found themselves similarly appalled and wrapped up in his last administration, is to just don't do that again. Don't give your power and your light away, because there's plenty of other great things in the world. Even when things are feeling really dark and dim and grim and bad, there are still really great people. There are great communities. Those aren't going anywhere. There will always be helpers. There will always be good people. Even if it becomes harder and harder to be those good people, they'll still be there. We will be those people. So I'm reminding myself of that. So anyways, thanks for being in our community. It does mean a lot. And we appreciate your support. We appreciate you listening to this. And we'll catch you on the next one.